Hello, students. Welcome to our next class in social. Our today's lesson is lesson number 7 from history, Civilizing the Native, Educating the Nation. In the earlier chapters, we learned how the British rule affected the lives of Rajas and Nawabs, peasants and tribals. But in this lesson, you're going to know how the British rule affected or improved the life of students of our country. The British, who had a major territorial control and who were collecting revenues from much more parts in our country, now felt that they had to civilize the Indians and change their customs and values. They thought like this because if the citizens are civilized, then they would understand why there is a need for a proper governance of the country and how Britishers were controlling their country in a proper manner. For this, the schooling system which now we see had evolved 200 years ago under the supervision of the British authorities. Here we shall see the views of three prominent educationist groups. Number 1, the Orientalists. Number 2, the Western educationists. And number 3, the Indian scholars. The educationalist group of Orientalists comprised or included of the people who had the scholarly knowledge and culture of Asia. These people believed that Asian cultural texts knowledge was far more superior and that Indians need to learn from the past in order to make their future better. In 1783, a person named William Jones came to Calcutta to meet a junior judge at the Supreme Court. William Jones was not only an expert in law, but he was a linguist. Children, linguist means a person who knows and studies several languages. William Jones had studied Greek and Latin at Oxford. He knew French and English, Arabic, Persian. When he came to India, he learnt Sanskrit language, grammar, and poetry from Hindu Pandits. Soon, he started studying ancient Indian texts on law, philosophy, religion, politics, morality, arithmetic, medicine, and the other sciences. Jones found that not only was he interested in promoting Indian texts in schools, but there were other Englishmen like Henry Thomas Colebrook and Nathaniel Halhed who were also busy in discovering the ancient Indian heritage, and they were also learning Indian languages and they were translating Sanskrit and Persian works into English. So, William Jones, Henry Thomas Colebrook, and Nathaniel Halhed together set up the Asiatic Society of Bengal and they started a journal or a book called Asiatic Researchers. William Jones and Henry Colebrook believed that India had attained its glory in the past, but its glory was decreasing because the local people, the local Indians, they were not able to value the Indian texts which were written in the past. The study of these ancient texts would help them to form the basis of future development in India. Study of the ancient Indian texts would not only help the British learn the Indian culture, but also help Indians to value their own heritage and understand the glories of their past. This view of William Jones and Henry Colebrook was agreed upon by many company officials, and they felt that the British should promote Indian learning rather than Western learning. The company officials thought that Hindus and Muslims should be taught what they already knew and valued, rather than teach them something which was entirely different to them. This would help the British people to win a place in the hearts of the local Indian people, and the Indians will not consider British as foreigners. Rather, they would be ready to accept the British people as their masters. With this thought, a madrasa. Now, madrasa is an Arabic word which means a place of learning. So, with this thought, a madrasa was set up in Calcutta in 1781 to promote the study of Arabic, Persian, and Islamic law, and a Hindu college was established in Benares in 1791 to encourage the study of ancient Sanskrit texts. But this was totally opposed and argued by the Western educationists. So now we are going to learn about the second group of people, that is the Western educationists. From the early 19th century, many British officials began to criticize, that is, find fault with the Orientalist vision of learning. They felt that the Eastern education, that is the Orientalist education, was full of errors, problems, and it was based on unscientific thought. The Western educationists felt that British should not spend much effort in encouraging the study of Arabic and Sanskrit language and literature. Amongst the famous Western educationist was James Mill, who declared that the British effort of educating Indians should not aim to teach what the native or local Indians wanted or what they respected in order to please them or win their hearts. But the aim of education was to teach something which was useful and practical. Hence, Western educationists wanted that the Indians should be educated about the scientific and technical advancement which was going on in the West, rather than teach the people of India only about poetry and sacred literature of the Asian culture. Another Western educationist, namely Thomas Babington Macaulay, felt that India was an uncivilized country, and in order to teach civilization, it was necessary to teach them Western education. Macaulay felt, or the British government in India should stop wasting public money in promoting Asian education because it was practically of no use to them. Macaulay strongly believed that the knowledge of English will also help them to understand the developments in Western science and philosophy. The knowledge of English would civilize people, change their tastes, values, and culture. Macaulay's written records were accepted and the English Education Act of 1835 was introduced, and through this a decision was made that English will be the medium of instruction for higher education and there would be no promotion of Oriental education. English textbooks now began to be produced for education. In 1854, Court of Directors of the East India Company in India sent a group of people to the Governor General of India. It was known as Wood's Dispatch. One of the best practical uses that Wood's Dispatch pointed out was that European learning would enable or would make Indians realize and recognize the advantages which they get after they expand or improve the trade and commerce. If they work towards trade and commerce, they would help to develop the resources of their country. Number 2, Wood's Dispatch also pointed out that European learning will improve the moral characters of Indians. It will make Indians more truthful and honest and will give civil servants to the British officials in India. After the Wood's Dispatch of 1854, many steps were taken out by the British officials. Education departments of the government were set up to extend control over all matters regarding educations. Steps were taken to bring a system of university education. In 1857, When the sepoys rose for the first rebellion in Meerut and Delhi, universities were being established in Calcutta, Madras, and Bombay. Attempts were also being brought to bring changes with the system of school education in India. Before all this happened, there was a survey which was conducted and a report was taken out by William Adam. In the 1830s, William Adam, a Scottish missionary, went around the districts of Bengal and Bihar. He was asked by the company to write a report on the progress of education in vernacular schools. The report, submitted by William Adam, produced some interesting facts. Number one, there were over 1 lakh pathshalas or schools in Bengal and Bihar. Each of the school will have 20 students, but the total number of children who were taught in these pathshalas was considerably over 20 lakh. These schools were set up by wealthy people or by the local community. At times, these schools were started by a teacher, that is, a guru. The system of education was flexible. There was no fixed fees, no printed books, no separate school building, no benches or chairs, no blackboards, no system of separate classes, no roll call registers, no annual examinations, and no regular timetable. In some places, classes were held under a banyan tree, and in other places either in the corner of a village, shop or temple, or even at the guru's or teacher's house. Fees collected depended on the income of parents. The rich had to pay more than the poor. Teaching was oral, and it was the guru who decided what should be taught to the students according to his or her needs. Students were not separated into different classes. All the different age group of students sat together in one place. The guru or the teacher interacted separately with groups of people with different levels of learning. Classes were not held during the harvest time. The schools started once the crops had been cut and stored. Till the mid-19th century, the company was concerned only with the primary and higher education, so it allowed the local schools to work as it was working. But after 1854, the company decided to improve the vernacular education. A new system of school education came to be implemented after 1854. Company appointed a number of government pundits, each in charge of looking after 4 to 5 schools. The task of the government pundit was to visit the schools and try and improve the standard of teaching. Each guru was asked to submit periodic reports and take classes according to a regular timetable. Teaching was now based on textbooks, and learning was to be tested through a system of annual examination. Students were asked to pay a regular fee, attend regular classes, sit on fixed seats, and obey the new rules of discipline. The schools or pathshalas which accepted the rules laid down by the British company officials were given government grants or money, but those who were unwilling to work with the new system received no money or government support. The new rules and routines which was followed had some severe problem. Number one, the discipline of the new system wanted regular attendance even during the harvest time. So it was very difficult for the children of poor families to work in the field during the harvest time, and they were forced to attend school in order to be not seen as indisciplined students. Third group of educationists, that is the Indian educationists. Now, British officials were not the only people who were thinking about education in India. From the start of the early 19th century, many thinkers from different parts of India began to talk of the need of wider spread of education. Although the Western education was becoming increasingly famous and many Indians wanted British people to open more and more schools in different parts of our country, but there were other Indians who reacted against the Western education. Mahatma Gandhi and Rabindranath Tagore were two people who were against the Western education system. Mahatma Gandhi argued that colonial education created a sense of inferiority in the minds of Indians. Western education showed itself as superior and destroyed the pride which the Indians had about their own culture. Mahatma Gandhi wanted an education that would help Indians to recover their sense of dignity and self-respect. Whereas in Western education, the system of education was trying to enslave the Indians by making them appreciate everything which came or which was made by the Western countries. During the national movement, Mahatma Gandhi urged students to leave education institutions in order to show to the British that Indians were no longer ready to become their slaves. Mahatma Gandhi strongly felt that the Indian languages should be the medium of teaching in schools and colleges. Moreover, Mahatma Gandhi said that Western education focused only on reading and writing. It valued more of textbooks knowledge rather than lived experience and practical knowledge. Mahatma Gandhi wanted people to work with their hands, to learn a craft and know how different things operated. This would develop their mind and their capacity to understand. Tagore's Abode of Peace. Rabindranath Tagore started the institution or a school in 1901. As a child, Tagore hated going to school. The school appeared to him like a prison, for he could never do what he felt like doing. On growing up, he wanted to set up a school where the child was happy, where he or she could be free and be creative, and he or she was able to explore his or her own thoughts and desires. Tagore felt that childhood should be a time of self-learning outside the rigid and restricting discipline of the schooling system set up by the British people. Teachers had to be imaginative, understand the child, and help the child to develop her or his curiosity. So he set up his school 100 kilometers away from Calcutta in a rural setting. He called his school Abode of Peace, Shanti Niketan, where students lived in harmony with nature. Although many of the ideas of Tagore and Mahatma Gandhi about education were similar, but there were differences too. Gandhiji was highly critical or opposing of Western education and its worship of machines and technology. That is, Gandhiji was opposed to the products which were made by the use of machines and technology. Tagore, on the other hand, wanted to combine elements of Western education as well as Indian tradition. He believed that teaching of science and technology along with art, music and dance would help in the overall development of a child. So, Many individuals and thinkers were thinking about the way a national education system should be developed. Some wanted changes within this system of education developed by the Britishers, whereas others wanted that this system of education can be developed or extended where it can include the emotions and sentiments of wider sections of people. But there were also some who wanted alternative systems of education to be created so that people could be educated into a culture that was truly national. Children, with that, I conclude this lesson.